Good morning and thank you. Stacy, what a great setup. It's an awkward title, folks. The stream of consciousness only works for Jack Kerouac, apparently. But it came from thoughts running in my head about 6 months ago that I want to share with you today. Innovation is awesome until it isn't. Innovation is truly awesome, lest you think I'm a Luddite. It's the engine that's driving this wonderful industry we've fallen into that enjoys a 10% CAGR for the foreseeable future and will see us all into retirement. Innovation got us through the last 3 years. Everyone in this room kept their job and was immensely productive with WebEx, Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. Make sure I don't miss anyone. Can we agree that virtual conferences sucked? Tracy, thank you. You brought 1,800 of our friends together and thousands of conversations happened yesterday and they were meaningful. And that's the essence of the discussion here is innovation is truly awesome. But we're at a point now in modernization, and when I say we, us, and about another dozen geographies around the world, where we've got a body of knowledge of some of the lessons learned from this innovation that we can take heed of and apply to the next half of the modernization journey. And you can do this across any of the vectors of modernization, across people and business models and operating models. I'm going to talk to two today about products and technology, because they're inextricably interlinked right now. There's another reason for talking about it right now, and I had a hunch that thankfully I was sat next to Ron this morning, and he validated with data that my hunch is right. Here's the playbook for modernization around the world. Sorry. Pretty simple two-stage act. Central authorities decide that we're going to have a generational change and update our national infrastructure. And then all y'all get together and we start innovating like crazy, and Stacy just gave us where Visa's going with her innovation. That's the plan. And as Mike Tyson told us, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And about 3 years ago, we got punched in the face. So instead of a 2-act play, we're in this 4-act play. We had a pandemic that triggered a massive amount of innovation because all y'all had 5-year virtual digitization programs that you had to do in 18 months. And y'all went out and did it, and we brought to market incredible things, and we persisted as an economy and as a business and so on. And the things that Stacy just showed us in terms of the economic data also came true. You cannot throw trillions of dollars into the global economies without spiking inflation. You cannot brutalize global supply chains and come out of that with trillions of dollars in deposits and not spike inflation. And for the last 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, central bankers are now pulling us back from that. And you can feel the slowdown. Whether it's a recession, pre-recession, mini-recession, the guys at Reuters called it a slow session, and I think that's the perfect title for it. We're in a pause. So if we're in a pause halfway through modernization, this is a chance to reflect, lessons learned, and figure out what we're going to do going forward. So that's the sort of context I want to put my thoughts into. On product. You have no idea what a great setup you just did for me, Stacy. Looking for icons on the web for product innovation. I found one that went back to 800 BC, first printed money. Coins predate that, bartering predates that. But you get a sense that the first millennial of payments innovation got us to credit cards and the first credit card terminal. Pretty slow millennium. Next 40 years, computers come into the mix. We get ACH, we get TCH. TCH has been around for a century and a half, but it was hydraulically driven. It's now going to be working with computers in more fast times. And we get up to 2020. And we know that the pace of innovation has gone on an exponential curve. And again, Stacy, you were the setup. I stop at 2020. BNPL, RTP, bill pay, pay by bank, the number of product offerings just walking around the hall, you can see more and more products coming in. What's the first observation on this slide? How many products have we killed? century ago, Henry Ford built the first Model T. He does not build Model Ts anymore. In fact, Ford only builds one car, the Ford Mustang. We have persisted in keeping every payments product we've conceived of, except what you told me yesterday, Tracy, the TTC ditch tokens, which really wasn't, it was just a proxy for a payment system. We're not very good at curating our garden, folks. It's a little weedy. And I think this is hitting a point where we got to use the pause to reflect on this, because at some point, diseconomies of scale kick in. If you're a very focused monoline provider, you can get away with not dealing with a bunch of it. If you're a full-service bank and payments provider, you're now into exponential number of products and exponential number of technologies, and all of the payment adjacent processes and technologies around counter fraud and KYC and AML and cyber and cyber and cyber and cyber in a marketplace that's driving down transaction fees, it gives me pause to thought, when does the model break? And curation, if we can't curate some of these payment offerings out, what can we do as a joint industry? I heard yesterday the word collaboration a dozen times. How can we collaborate across industry or within groups to mitigate the costs and impact of maintaining some of these legacy products and some of these future products, like an industry-wide counter fraud, together, such that we keep the health in our industry? Technology. Technology, in my mind, is going through, and I've been in this business a bit of a while, and I've declared every technology change revolutionary, when in fact it's incremental. We as an industry have built better mousetraps for a long time. In the last decade, we went into a space where we are now building exponential technologies. There are three of note, I'm sure there's others, but the three that stick in my mind that are changing our industry are mobile, cloud, and AI. These aren't just tweaking and making things better, they're changing the industry entirely. When there's 7 billion devices around doing payments, the rise of software point-of-sale devices now makes every one of us with a cell phone a store. It is a revolutionary change that we've got to deal with. And under the cover, and this is for the geeks, and I'm going to lose half of the functional people at this point, is this transition to the cloud and the inculcation of AI into our payment processing platforms. The funny little box to the left, that's my friends over at IBM Technology. That's the mainframe. It's ironic that it's gray and drab. As you can guess, this icon comes from our friends at Amazon. The little gray drab mainframe on the side is our legacy and our incumbency. Like it or not, 85% of the world's payments still run through an IBM mainframe. Migrating to the cloud is our destiny. We know this because the cloud is the platform that's going to support payments going forward. We know it because it's frankly going to be the platform for industries everywhere. When 7 of the 10 top market caps are cloud companies building these technologies, we know that that's where the money is going to be eventually. And there's both a good news and a bad news story from the past 5 years that we can learn from this. One is developing these new innovative offerings in the cloud has been spectacular. All of the efficiencies that the hyperscalers have sold us on speed to market, flexibility, new development methods around agile and so on and so forth, and top tool chains and all the gobbledygook that the propeller heads tell us is largely true. We are building faster and better and bringing things to market faster and better. Second part of this revolution, though, is getting off that mainframe and into the cloud. That migration of what drives an industry and moving it into the cloud, I probably spent most of the last 3 years in clients asking, how do we do this? And the answer is poorly. And it comes from 2 reasons. One, there is a view and a vision, and I got to put the qualifier here. I do more work with non-IBM technology than IBM technology. The fact is, it is the incumbent platform. There's a view by many that the mainframe is old. And if you're one of those people, and CTOs and CIOs say, get me off the mainframe, get me off the mainframe. That's my singular goal. If I ask you to replace the word old with mature, It might change your thinking. It has 40 years of evolution and maturity that hyperscalers don't have. It does things that the hyperscalers don't do, yet. It is also inexplicably intertwined with all of the other systems in a full-service bank, and breaking those apart for those who have tried this journey has been very costly and largely angst-ridden. That's the last 3 years of discussions. The last 3 months of discussion with banks from Belgium, France, and Brazil, and they are important because they're 3 years ahead of us. They're asking me for what's the point of view for payments modernization on the mainframe? And the answer there is, I still come back to this chart. It's not there. You do need to get to the cloud, because that will be the platform for the next generation and probably the next generation after that for the kind of work we do in payments. And the answer comes in, you got to find a way to make them coexist. It's the phrase hybrid cloud. This was, shameless IBM marketing pitch. We've been punting that for the last 5 years. Single largest group of people hired at AWS and Microsoft in the last 5 years has been mainframe engineers. This coexistence has got to be accepted and understood. In particular, the client from Belgium was a purpose-hired CTO out of one of the cloud platforms, because they had spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars trying a migration to the cloud and failed miserably. And it's really, it's really a strange space when an IBM guy is being told by a refugee from Silicon Valley, I will never move my data off the mainframe, but for everything else, it's going into the cloud. On the architecture side, I told you earlier that cloud-native development in the cloud has actually delivered much upon the value proposition and hype we've talked about in the past. But there's a couple of hidden problems here we also have to anticipate for the next half of our modernization journey. I stumbled on this. I don't know who Christina Lin is. This was on a developer portal. She had built this beautiful artisanal architecture. And it's the words on the right that killed me. I will describe the first technology layer. And then you count up all the little boxes there for me. Each one of those is a service or a module that makes up the modern developer environment for building these wonderful new products in a microservice environment. There are hundreds of them. And building them with people who are familiar and adept at these things is proving the value proposition. And then they hand them off to folks like Sean Van Ray. And we go from that little drab mainframe on the side that had about 8 moving parts, and in a regular quarter, we would do maybe 20 updates a year, every quarter. Anyone want to guess what that environment looks like in operations? It's an order of magnitude more complex. There's not 7 or 8 moving parts, there's 114. And every quarter there's 114 security patches. And every quarter there's 114 version upgrades. And all of a sudden you're doing 250 changes in production on a payment system that you expect to run close to 5 nines these days, because everything is dial tone. Hands up all the operators in the room who manage systems. What happens when we start doing that amount of change in our systems every quarter? Things break. Systems running in production that you don't change run in production, and they keep running in production. Every time we change them, we introduce new risks. And that's been the reality of what we're learning in these new technologies. Really easy to build with, a little more difficult to manage. And that notion of maturity also comes in, that the products are just coming in to help us. So what can we do about some of these things? On the product side, during the pause, what can you do? What can you do with your friends to start looking at that product suite? And either as an industry, let's put together a notion to kill it. Stacey gave you the path that Asia and Europe has done. I will kill products by making you take up other products. and there's been a natural attrition. In some geographies, we just decide we're not going to do checks. In other geographies, like Japan, they agreed that we really don't need 30,000 ATMs. If we all use the same ATM and had a single company run our ATMs, we could probably get rid of 20,000 ATMs. Similar approach in Finland and Sweden. We've got to start working together to do some culling of the garden and look for ways to mitigate these costs before the diseconomies of scale hit us. I would also urge you to revisit and reconfirm all your business cases. The costs of this transformation are higher than anticipated, and the benefits, Stacy made this point, it's not going to be in the transaction fee, it's the value added that you're going to put onto it. And on technology, plan and prepare for a very different operational model, and whatever budget you had in there for automation, double it and add a zero. Thanks for your time this morning. Have a great show.